everybody. Welcome to the Awaken Woman podcast. My name is Claire. I am the confidence and the identity coach here at Inspired Lifestyles, and I'm bringing to you a really wonderful, beautiful guest today to chat to us. We are here at episode 12 of season 2, and we're just coming out of the Easter break. So we are filled with chocolate and hot cross buns and wine and celebrations, and I'm joined by a very beautiful woman who's joining me from Michigan in the US. So please join me in welcoming Kim Poplaski. Welcome to the Awaken Woman podcast. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. So we're just chatting. This is the best bit about social media and the part that gets a little bit shadowed over with all the bad news. But Kim and I have connected. We are on opposite sides of the world. I'm here in Melbourne in Australia. We are heading into winter. It is cold and drizzly, and Kim is coming out of spring break. And it's beautiful and warm. So Kim, thanks for joining me. Kim is a leader for women to have better moods, energy, and focus. And we've connected on quite a few common grounds. Today, we're going to be speaking about the art of looking inwards as a woman as we search for the answers and living up to our true identity. And what that means is that we're going to find some tips and tricks for you that we've uncovered. And Kim's going to share a couple of little stories with you of how we've recovered from burnout. What were some of our symptoms? What were our tipping points to get there, which we're going to go into in this call. But first and foremost, Kim, welcome. Let everyone know, who is Kim?
Hi, so I'm Kim. I am 41 now, so I am feeling that kind of like coming into my figuring out my life as I'm the mom of an almost 13-year-old, should be 13 at the end of this month. So I'm at that point in my life where I'm kind of figuring out, what does it mean to be Kim, and who is Kim? What does Kim like, when I'm at the point where my daughter is still needing a parent like we all do, but she's not needing me for all the little things anymore. And kind of figuring out what makes me happy and what I like now that I'm kind of at this different point in my life.
Oh, I love it. I am about to turn 41 in a few months. So I definitely agree that hitting 40, mentally, I think I'm 21. Like, I think I can still rock a lot of stuff. I've got an 11 and a 7-year-old. So we are almost similar stages. I've got boys. And you think, you watch the kids, you get involved at school, you think, I can take on these kids. These kids, man, are bigger than me. And I'm not big. I'm only little. And I'm chasing around 12-year-olds who are taller than me, faster than me. But it is all mental. So thank you for sharing.
It is, until it hits about 9 o'clock at night. And like, I think about actually leaving the house to go somewhere that late. I'm like, oh, absolutely not.
Yeah. It's either Target or grocery shopping at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. You see all the mums who've just reached their limit. They're just out of the house. They're listening to the supermarket music, which is not great. Just chilling out. Imagine if they had a wine bar at supermarkets at 9 o'clock at night. Oh my goodness. It could be rocking
Then
places.
more of us might be willing to go out if we could still wear like our sweatpants though, right?
Oh, absolutely. Hoodies, trackies, dressing gowns, nothing glamorous. But it is a point that we spoke about in Kim, when you get to the point of 40 and your kids, like you said, they still need the mum, but then we're also releasing that pressure of independence. Like, we want to teach our kids independence, but how do we let go? And who do we become during that letting go process, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially as teenagers. And we try and navigate the new world order with teenagers, because it was a little while ago since I've been a teenager, and there was not this much technology, there was not this much going on, but the same principles were still around. So absolutely. And it's very interesting that Kim and I, and most of the guests that are on joining me here at the Awaken Woman podcast, are very confident women because we were once not confident. We have a voice because we were once silenced, whether it was by ourselves, our circumstances, our legacies, whatever it may be. Would you agree with that, Kim?
Yes, that's so true. It definitely took hitting that bottom to have a turning point and realizing that I had to do something about it, and I was the only one responsible taking care of me.
Yeah, and that's where we have to stop thinking that someone is going to save us. There is no diamond encrusted platter, no knight in shining armor that is going to sweep you off your feet that TikTok tells you that there is. It's about creating the legacy that we want and setting the standard of what we want. Okay, we set the standard of how we are treated. We set the standard of how we are perceived in this world. So, and I think the struggle is when we start to put pressure on ourselves to be perfect, to compare ourselves to a fake world of social media, we start to get to the point of burnout because we are running in overwhelm constantly. Would you agree?
I agree. And I think especially what you brought up there with like the social media aspect. Social media is great. I mean, that's how
How
I
we
connect with
connected.
people. I love it. But I think sometimes, especially like as moms in general and as women, we often are comparing ourselves to other people. It's so easy to forget that what we're seeing on social media is just someone's highlight reel. So we're only seeing all the positives in someone's life. We're not seeing those rough times or those days where they have just had it and they're out of gas and just can't go on anymore. I mean, we don't post about that. And so when you're comparing yourselves to these other women online, and oh, that mom seems like she does all these things for her kids and they always have fun, or that mom always seems put together. She, looks great every day. She's always got her hair done. Her kids always look nice. They're always smiling. That's just what we're posting. And so it's so easy to compare our reality to someone else's highlight reel and then really be hard on ourselves when we're not comparing to these other people.
Absolutely. And a little more to that is that that's probably not even their house. They probably have a live-in nanny. They have a cleaner, a chef, and a stylist. So you are not even comparing to a real person. And that is what I spoke about in Imperfect on day one, where we killed the comparison last week in my mini course, is that we are comparing to something that is not real. Yet we are so fixated on that comparison that it controls everything we do. It controls the way we look at our relationships. It feeds our inadequacies so that we are not only do we not feel good enough, we are also setting a standard of everyone around us not being good enough at our own standard. And that's not what you want to live in. You want to live in passion and intimacy and fun and connection. But how do you do that when you're comparing yourself to a housewife on social media whose house it isn't even, they're probably not even her own kids.
Yes. Yes.
Right? It's so weird. It is so weird. And then we get so overwhelmed and then we get stuck in the rut of burnout. And to anyone similar to Kim and I who have suffered burnout, it's an ongoing trigger management solution that we have, or a strategy, because we are always going to be triggered because it's an ingrained feeling in us, especially if you're a people pleaser. For me, burnout occurred 3-4 years ago now when I was working in corporate and my people pleasing took over. So instead of setting strong boundaries, I allowed work to take over everything. I brought work home. I was doing calls at home. I had a 6 and a 2-year-old at the time. My husband had started his own business, yet I was so fixated on getting that adulation from work that I allowed that to take over. And I was being used. So I went over and above all the time. Got to a point completely overwhelmed, completely tired, was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night and trying to still be the perfect mum, the perfect wife, the perfect worker. And it didn't work. And suffered burnout. And now I've got some really great strategies that I use every day to help me manage that, even if I feel I'm being triggered. So, Kim, what was your experience with burnout? What were some of the symptoms that some women need to look out for that you felt was tipping you over the edge?
Yeah. So when I really hit my biggest point of burnout, I was working full time as a social worker and child welfare. So I was working with children who were not able to be in their with their biological families for a variety of reasons. And so being a people pleaser and also like the fact that I'm working with children, I felt such a pull to do my job 110% at least every day because these kids were depending on me to make decisions in their lives. Then I came home and I was the mom to a child who also needed a mom to be there and be present. And I wanted to be the absolute best mom I could be for her. And I'm a wife and a daughter and a sister. And I was all of these things to other people. And as a people pleaser and as somebody who my heart fills when I see happiness in others and when I am making sure that others are well taken care of, that I was letting myself go so far down the priority list that I was not sleeping well. I was feeling so burned out by the time I got home from work or tired from work, that I was just coming home and pretty much crashing, having no energy, not wanting to do anything with my daughter. So then I felt like a failure because I had used up everything I had at work. I'm coming home, my daughter is not getting the 100% mom that I wanted to be for her. I was snappy with my husband and didn't really have as much patience, and really just finding myself saying yes to so many things for so many people. Can you come here? Or can you do that? Or can you do this? And I wanted to do everything and not giving myself the grace of knowing that I can't do it all, to the point where I was, like I said, I was not sleeping. I was not happy. I was tired all the time. When I was sleeping, I was having dreams about work or dreams about home. And all of my dreams, I still wasn't being able to rest because I was even stressed out while I was dreaming. Um,
That's next
and I
level.
got to the point where I felt like a zombie. I felt
Yep.
like I was so tired. And I don't just mean like tired, like, oh, I need a nap. Like, just physically, everything was hard. And I felt like then I was just like almost watching my life happen because I was too exhausted to even be a part of it.
Yep.
And
And it's
so it got to the point where I remember one day, I came home from work and my daughter wanted to show me something or tell me something. And I was like, honey, mommy's just too tired. I need to rest. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, you're always tired.
oh,
And that just
sweetheart.
broke my heart.
Yep. It's interesting. We share such a similar story, yet we've not met. I've written down some words and it was like we are speaking verbatim from each other's story. Zombie mum is something that I felt so strongly about too. You present as you. So from the outside, I would present as Claire. On the inside, I was like nothing there. I couldn't hold conversations. It was dropping kids off at school, literally running to the next thing, thinking about in half an hour I've got to be at work and what have I got on my list and who's put something in my calendar, what am I walking into, rushing, rushing, rushing. Have I logistically worked out where the kids are for their after school activities, who's picking them up, who's dropping them off, where are we going for dinner? So you present as you, and that is the mask that you wear, the perfectionist mask of I've got to hold my shit together. Cannot lose my mind today. Do not lose it today. Do not lose it. Do not lose it. Hold it together. You'll hold it together at work because that's an image you want to portray. Yet you let your guard down at home. And like you said, you're snappy at your husband. And it was at that point I noticed the disconnect starting to happen. And I've not been shying away from the fact that we have been through a massive disconnection and a rebuild in the last few years. But you present as you, but you are dead inside. You have no emotion. You have no emotion, yet you are super emotional. You could cry at the
Yes.
drop of a hat. Someone would say something to you, you would make a tiny error and you would think it would be the worst thing in the world. Zombie mum is perfect in that sense. And I suppose I love the tipping point for us as mothers who are nurturers. I think, especially in your case as a social worker for young people who you obviously have a nurturing heart, and that is something that is ingrained in you, and you never want to lose that because the world needs more caring, nurturing, squishy, hugging, loving people. But when you give all of that to people who you want to be better in life, you tend to take for granted the life that your kids have. And I think you tend to take for granted the needs that your kids have because your husband may be there, your mum may be there, school will be there, they're at childcare, they're getting taken care of, where all they really want is you in your messy hair, no makeup, not rushing. And similarly, mum, you're always tired. And for me, it was when my elder said to me, Mum, I'm getting class captain award. Do you think if you're not too busy at work, you could come? And similar to you, it was something that my kids should never ask for your time. Your kids should never say to you, if you're not too busy, could you come? It should be, Mum, I have this on, and then it's my responsibility to make it happen. And that was the tipping point for me to realize, whoa, my totem pole is in the wrong order. My kids and my husband had to come first. And that is when, You realize the triggers that you're under and your tipping point, and you come home and I can't do this anymore. So you resign from a position and you find what your new normal is, isn't it? Is that how you felt as well?
Yes. And it was hard for me at first because I felt then, like if I'm saying I can't do this job anymore, I'm failing.
Mm-hmm.
If I am still doing this job, I'm not being who I want to be at home and I'm failing. How do I make it work both places?
Yeah.
And quite honestly, my family had to come first. They are my priority. They will always be my priority. And I had to show them that they were my priority.
Yeah, and I think you have to come really close to knowing what you have to lose and on the brink of losing everything. At that point, if I kept going the way I was going for even another 3 months, I wouldn't have been married, I wouldn't be in the house that I'm in. So I was pretty close to losing everything I'd worked really hard for the sake of what? A thank you that I wasn't even going to get at work, for an ego boost because people knew who I was when I walked in the door. Yet you come home and your kids would be off standing back going, what are we dealing with? What mood is mum in? Is she got a call? Is she going to tuck me in? They are the pivotal moments where we have our priorities wrong. And you can teach people, and I teach it to my clients, that you can share stories, but unless you are willing to say enough is enough, you will not have effective change in your life. You will not make yourself a priority unless you are at the brink of losing everything that Kim and I both had. We had to have the crappy conversations, the really dark times with our partners, husbands, and kids to realize, okay, this can't continue. But if you're not willing to have those conversations, then it's not going to change for you. And Kim, you would know that from your working background too. You've had to have lots of difficult conversations with people, and change happens when you agree that something's got to change.
Absolutely. And it's so
Absolutely.
easy to see what needs to change for other people, but it's not always easy to see it in ourselves.
No, because like you've mentioned a few times, it's the fear of failure. You have to admit that you are not the perfect person, mother, wife, woman. So you need to change to get to that. But that's a difficult conversation with fear of rejection. Any of the others, fear of failure comes in. It is really, really difficult. So I hope that everyone that's listening will realize that if you need to draw the line in the sand, so to speak, that you are not a failure at all. You are far from failing. You are probably excelling and ahead of the population because you've realized what you actually want to do, and where you need to get your priorities right as women, as well. So, Kim, I want to ask a couple of questions. You lead women and you help women with their moods, their energy, and their focus. What are some tips that you have that you make yourself a priority? How do you make yourself a priority and benefit the family around you?
I think the biggest change I had to make, and the hardest piece for me to get used to doing is saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and having boundaries. And I can't remember who the quote was from, but it really just hit me. When someone said having boundaries isn't a negative thing. Having boundaries is teaching other people how you expect to be treated and setting those expectations. Because if you don't set those expectations and you don't stand firm in those boundaries, then you are letting people walk all over you and you are not being your best advocate. And that was huge for me. If someone were to ask me if I could, can you babysit my kids? Can you pick me up? Do you have some time to talk? Just all of those things. My answer was always yes. I didn't know how to say no to people. And now I've had to really sometimes I will say, I don't know right now. Let me think about it, because I've had to decide, I want to say no. I don't want to do that. But my heart is telling me to say yes. And so allowing myself to think about something and not answer in the moment has been huge, so that I can really think about what am I being asked to do, whether it's taking on another responsibility, in the workplace, whether it's taking on and, volunteering at my daughter's school or taking on this role. Is that going to affect my ability to take care of myself and take care of my child, take care of my family. And is it going to benefit me or her or my family enough that I'm willing to sacrifice the time that it's going to take? And allowing myself to say, I can't answer that right now. Let me think about it and get back to you. Lets me have that minute to really think about it without the pressure of giving them the answer right then. Because when there's that pressure of answering, and in my heart, I am a people pleaser at heart, I want to say yes all the time. So that's made it easier for me to say no when the answer really needs to be no.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. And I think women need to understand that your time and energy is currency. I've mentioned this to people. If you are sitting there saying and complaining that you don't have time, put your hourly rate against all of the things that you do. If you are scrolling, go into your phone. I mentioned this in Imperfect. Go into your phone, look at your screen time report, and then put an hourly rate of all of the time you're on Instagram, TikTok, and then tell me again how you don't have time. Because 10 minutes a day is all you need to do to make yourself a priority. Making yourself a priority is not sitting in a corner or running a bubble bath. Self-care is not bubble bath. Self-care is helping unravel the crap that you've inherited in your mind that you have taught yourself to believe. And that is holding you back. Your people pleasing. Okay, your fear of failure. Yeah, your fear of saying no. Because you're going to say yes all the time, and then you're going to have this anxious feeling building up in the lead up to whenever that date is, because really, really just want to say no. And then if you ask your husband in their masculine energy, they're going to say, why don't you just say no in the first place? Well, of course it sounds easier, but I don't want to let these people down because you think they're judging you for saying no. Okay. And similarly, if you set that boundary and if you take the time, I love how you mentioned that you take that time to pause, you're also teaching the other person that it's not going to be a yes straight away anymore. It's planning that process, that seed of, okay, well, I'm going to ask her. And if she says yes, then that's great, but she's going to give me time. She's going to think about it and get back to me. And that's going to then make this next person understand, is it something that's really worth your time? Or are they just trying to get out of something they don't want to do? It pushes the accountability back because you're valuing your time. You're valuing your energy. Yeah. You may not be doing anything, but maybe you need that day not to do anything.
Yes.
Rest is so important. Women need to prioritize rest. Once you learn the art of resting, your soul begins to open up and you start to become a brand new person. Absolutely. Okay. So my tip is that you need to find 10 minutes a day. Easy stuff to do. You can find 10 minutes, make yourself a priority. What are you going to journal on? What are you going to think about? Who are you going to listen to? What good noise are you incorporating for 10 minutes a day? And then see how that goes. Might grow to 15 minutes a day, might stay at 10, but you're gaining an extra 10 minutes of good noise every day. And you'd be telling your kids this at the same time. That is my biggest advocate, is that I want to be able to be the person that I'm telling my kids to be present, to listen, to love, to care, to be responsible, take accountability, but I'm not doing the same. So what message am I demonstrating to my kids? Who am I demonstrating my kids and women should be if I'm not doing the same thing for me? And I think that's really important as we navigate teenagers in today's world where everything is accessible. Everything, yes. Right? Everything is accessible. How do we teach our young people what being an adult and being a woman in today's world is? Because we are both on the same apps. We are both on TikTok. We are both on Instagram. We are both on Facebook. We're both on YouTube. So how do we demonstrate what an adult is using the technology? What boundaries are we setting for ourselves that we want our kids to follow? That's something that is important to me as well. So as we wrap up, because it's already been half an hour, I love these chats. Everyone that's listening will know it goes so quickly, and everyone that is so nervous in joining me on the podcast, I kind of, not me, I just waffle on. It's a genuine chat because I believe that's something I want to listen to. I don't want to listen to a structured interview. I want to listen to two women who are having a chat and telling me that, yeah, life's really difficult, that you don't have to show up being perfect, because that's pressure in itself. If I see someone and follow someone who's living a perfectly sculpted life, well, I'm not going to be that, because that's not me. I want to sit in sweatpants and activewear and drink coffee and cocktails I don't want someone telling me that's perfect. I want to follow the real women who are getting beat up by their 10-year and 11-year-old kids at basketball in the front yard. So,
Yeah.
Kim, as we wrap up, I want to ask the question: the best benefit that your husband and your daughter has received from you starting this inward work, this personal development journey that you're on, what is the best benefit that they've both received from you being
I'm more
the person
present.
you want to be?
I'm definitely more present. And when I am with them, like that time with them is important, and I'm able to give them all of me in the moments that I'm giving them my time. But then also, letting them know that when I am having time for me, I need to give myself all of me too. And that has been huge. I feel like the quality time is just better. That we're able to connect more, that I feel I'm just a happier person, and it's a genuine happiness. I feel like taking care of myself has been so great. And it is an example for, we've talked about that, having the teenagers, I have a 13-year-old daughter, and it's important to me that she sees her mom being the role model of a woman that she wants to grow up to be. And not that she'll be exactly like me. I don't expect that, but I expect that she won't say, "Oh my gosh, I'm not doing any of that stuff that my mom does,"
Yeah.
because I want her to see someone that she can envision. When I think about her envisioning her future, I want her to think that anything is possible. And she knows that because she's had people showing her that.
And I think that's really important. And it's something that I speak with all my clients about is, do you want your kids to grow up as the person that you are? Or are you willing to be the living demonstration of making that change? And I know that when we say we are being present, we focus a lot on our kids and how being a present mum is, but we need to also make a priority being present in our relationships, and how, as a woman, to feel seen and heard and loved and to have intimacy and passion in your romantic relationships is an absolute game changer. Yes, we need to be present as parents, but let's not lose focus on the fact of how important a romantic relationship is for us. For me, it is. I'm definitely someone that needs to have that connection, and that is an absolute game changer. As you're nodding on screen, Kim, and you can, I
Yes.
know that you feel this. To feel seen and heard, and to not have to ask someone how to love you, is a feeling that is indescribable. To know that you can, I've been with my husband since we were 18. We've been married for 13. So over that 23-year journey, there's been a lot of roundabouts and ups and downs and points, U-turns as well. But imagine having that, after all of that, feeling seen and heard and truly loved without being compared to someone. That is freedom in your relationship. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we don't look like we did when we were 18. I am never going to look like I did when I was 18. It's not, and I don't want to look like I did when I was 18, because I'm enjoying my life as I am as a nearly 41-year-old woman. But to have that complete safety feeling, ladies, I know you want to be present in for your kids, and that is amazing. But please make sure that you are prioritizing presence with your partner in a romantic sense, because you need that connection. That is something that is a human need. So please don't downplay the importance of having someone think of you during the day, someone call you to check in on you and message you. We talk about soulmates the different ways, but connection on a romantic level is really, really important. And not settling for anything that you deserve is really important as well. So, Kim, as we wrap up, I want to thank you firstly. Thank you for joining me and sharing me. We have spoken so many similar stories, and I hope that the ladies that are listening are really going to benefit from perhaps some light bulbs that they're practicing and some habits that are not being positive in their lives. What would be one tip for a woman who, or a mum who feels they are heading into, you're heading into your summer break in the US, to build that connection with your child and with your partner? What is one thing that you can do to really build that connection with your kids and with your partner?
I think really, and you kind of touched on this a minute ago, knowing how they feel loved. So, you hear people talk about the love languages, but really, like, what is it that makes them feel loved? Is it time with them? Is it the way you talk to them? Is it, what are those things? So that way, when you are spending that time with your family, with your spouse, with your kids, that they know that you see them and that you hear them and that you understand them.
Absolutely. Love languages is a pivotal point to really breaking down the confusion around love languages. And what I found is that if there is a bit of a disconnection, you're often fighting the same cause but on different sides. So if you're feeling unseen, unheard, unloved, your partner is probably still feeling unseen, unheard, unloved. They just don't know how to combat that, especially if they are in their masculine energy, because masculine energy is black and white. It's this or that. Feminine energy is a full rainbow of colors, and it depends on the day because we are doing different things all the time. But that is really important. Go and discover yourself, discover who you are in your relationship, and discover what your relationship partner is, who they are, what makes them tick, and then do the same for your kids. Okay, I've got 2 boys, so mine are completely, I've got an introvert and an extrovert. So I need to make sure I'm managing 2 different personalities and who I am in that as well. Okay, because you cannot throw a blanket over everything because it's you. You need to break you down. And who are you as a woman? Who are you as a wife? Who are you as a mother to your children, as they are different people? And that is what's really going to help you unlock your identity. It's what's really going to ask you to bring clarity to the darkest parts and find you the answers, and it's going to be different to every woman's journey. Kim's journey is very different to mine. It might sound the same, but we are very different people. We might get there at the same time. We have different love languages, we have different communication styles, but we're here fighting for the same cause and inspiring and empowering women to keep searching for answers and not settle. That is basically what Kim and I do. And that is why we are here talking to women, to inspire women to really look at what is important in life and where are you putting your time as energy and prioritizing throughout as well. So, Kim, thank you. Have you got any closing statements before we close off this podcast?
I think the big thing is, if you're feeling any of this stuff that we've talked about today, start putting in those changes now before you get to that point of burnout, because it's way easier to start making the changes before you hit that breaking point.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to speak about how you're feeling. There is an eloquent and graceful way of saying how you're feeling without making it seem like it's somebody else's fault, because I know that could be something that is felt from your partner. If you bring up all these things, they may feel inadequate, that they're not doing enough. But eloquently discuss how you're feeling, and it will open up a box for you, similar to what Kim said. Start having those conversations and habit changes now. Subtly do them without telling anybody, and see if anyone notices. Start making yourself a priority, see what happens, because that's really important. So, Kim, thank you so much for joining me this Tuesday evening over in the US. And to everybody that's listening, please go and check out Kim. She's doing amazing things. I've got the link here in the podcast. Please go and say hi and check out what she's doing, because she's definitely a leader for women and bringing a wealth of social work knowledge to everything that she's producing. And it is a message that is really important. So, Kim, once again, thank you for joining me. Ladies that are listening, please leave your comments below. But thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. See ya.